You know what's funny? Before I even said I do, my mother-in-law had already asked me if I had savings, not do you love my son? Not what are your dreams together? Nope. Just, how much do you have in your account? I laughed, awkwardly. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. From the moment I married into that family, I was no longer Zoe, the woman who built her own business from scratch, who paid her way through college, who worked double shifts to afford a better life. I was a wallet. A card swiping machine. A walking ATM. It started small. They needed a little help with groceries that month. Then it was the phone bill, the car insurance, their cable, their medical, then their other daughter's school tuition. And then the emergency wedding that had to happen within weeks, for their son who still lived at home and hadn't worked a job longer than 6 months. I paid it all. At first, out of kindness, then out of guilt, because every time I said no, or even hesitated, there'd be this long silence. Or worse, my husband would look at me with that defeated face, like, please don't make this harder than it already is. And the thing is, I loved him. God, I really did. And I wanted to believe that helping his family was helping ours, but what no one tells you is this: when you're the only one giving, helping starts to feel like bleeding. And I was bleeding dry. The moment I knew I'd had enough came wrapped in a pastel envelope. I had just gotten home from a 10-hour client pitch. My feet hurt. My head hurt. All I wanted was to curl up on the couch and eat leftovers in peace. Instead, I walked in and found my in-laws sitting in my living room, uninvited, of course, with papers on the table and my husband looking like he was about to throw up. What's going on? I asked. My mother-in-law gave me her usual fake sweet smile. We have an idea. You're going to love it. Spoiler, I didn't. The idea was this: I should buy them a house. A bigger one, somewhere nice. And they already picked out the location. Oh, and it should be titled in their daughter's name. Because, according to them, she needs it more. She's still young, my father-in-law added. She hasn't found a stable job yet. It'll help her get on her feet. I blinked. You want me to buy your daughter a house? Technically it's for the family, my mother-in-law chirped. But yes. In her name. It's time someone helped her the way you've helped everyone else. I stared at my husband. He couldn't even meet my eyes, and in that moment, something in me snapped, not loudly. Not dramatically. No screaming. No breaking dishes, just a quiet click, like a lock finally turning inside my chest. I stood up. You'll get the house, I said calmly. Their faces lit up, but, I added, don't ever ask me for anything again. And I walked out of my own house and drove straight to a hotel that night, where I slept for the first time in months without waking up in a cold sweat. The next morning, I woke up to 13 missed calls from my husband, 4 from my mother-in-law, 2 from my sister-in-law, and a text that read, "Did you really mean it about the house? Let's talk. We can make it work." Make it work. They really thought this was a negotiation. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to see, was that I had already been looking for a house, not for them. For me, I had a dream, before the marriage, before the stress, of a home with a garden, a kitchen with big windows, and an office filled with sunlight. A place that was mine. A sanctuary. A future. I had put it on hold for years because of them. Because every time I had savings, they had needs. But not anymore. I called my real estate agent that same week and made an offer on a house I'd been eyeing for months. Quiet neighborhood. Secure gate. Big enough to breathe but small enough to feel safe. Mine. I paid for it in full, no mortgage. No cosigners. No in-laws, and here's the kicker, I never told them. Instead, I started packing. My husband asked where I was going. I didn't answer. He followed me around the apartment like a lost puppy while I taped boxes and labeled them with things like peace, self-worth, and dignity. Are you really leaving? He asked one night, voice barely above a whisper. I'm not leaving, I said. I'm living, for the first time in years. He didn't stop me. He just watched me go. The house was everything I dreamed of: white stone walls, tall trees, a garden with space for herbs and daisies, a study where I set up my desk, my books, my candle collection. It smelled like lavender and freedom. I moved in quietly, no housewarming party, no Instagram post. Just me and my peace. But of course, peace doesn't last long when people think they own you. A week later, they came uninvited: my husband, his parents, and their golden girl, my sister-in-law. They showed up at the gate. I saw them on the security camera, standing there like they belonged. My mother-in-law was dressed like she was going to brunch. My sister-in-law wore sunglasses and entitlement. My husband looked unsure. The intercom buzzed. I answered, "Zoe, we're here. Come open the gate." I paused, looked directly into the camera, and said, "Why are you here?" "To see the house. You said you'd buy it." "I did." "Well, let us in." I tilted my head. "This house wasn't for you." Silence. "I said you'd get a house." "And you did," I added, pulling out my phone and forwarding the real estate listing of a tiny, fixer-upper studio 45 miles away. Bought in full. In their daughter's name. "You're joking," my mother-in-law hissed into the mic. "Nope," I said. "That's what your behavior was worth." Then I pressed the button. Gate closed. I watched them shout at the camera, waving their hands, faces twisted with disbelief. I turned the volume off and made tea, and in that moment, for the first time in a long, long time, I smiled. It began a week after I closed the gate on them. At first, it was quiet. I almost believed they'd gotten the message. Then came the first peace offering, a fruit basket. It was left at the edge of my property, outside the gate. No card. No name. But I knew who it was from. It had all the trademarks of my mother-in-law's theatrics: bougie ribbon, overpriced arrangement, and an air of fake humility. I didn't bring it inside. I watched it wilt in the sun like their expectations. The next day, they showed up. I heard the intercom buzz and checked the camera feed. There they were, standing at the gate, my mother-in-law holding a container wrapped in foil like it was an olive branch, and my father-in-law beside her, looking uncomfortable and stiff. As if standing there was beneath him but necessary, she waved at the camera with an overly sweet smile. "Zoe, honey. We brought your favorite, paneer biryani." As if a home-cooked meal could erase years of emotional blackmail, I didn't answer. They rang twice. Waited. Then left, and that was just the beginning. They sent text after text, each one cloaked in the language of love and guilt. "You were always like a daughter to us. We miss having you around. Let's put all this unpleasantness behind us. Your sister-in-law is struggling, Zoe. She's your family too. We're getting old, and we'd like to make things right before it's too late. The worst one, we didn't raise our daughter to be selfish. You were always the giving one." That one stung, not because I believed it, but because it reminded me of the woman I used to be. The one who gave and gave and gave. Until there was nothing left. They thought I was still her. They thought I'd fold if they knocked long enough, begged hard enough. They thought pity would work where guilt failed, but they forgot something. I had rebuilt my backbone the day I shut that gate in their faces. And it wasn't made of guilt anymore. The messages didn't stop. They just evolved. When the emotional blackmail didn't work, they sent their most effective weapon, my sister-in-law. She called in tears, sniffling like a child. "Zoe, please. I can't make my car payments. Rent's overdue. Everything's falling apart." I let her talk. I let her spill every dramatized detail of her hardship like a soap opera audition. Then I asked, calmly, "What happened to the house I bought you?" Dead silence, and then, click, she hung up without answering. Because we both knew the truth: that house was never about stability. It was a prize. A trophy. A gift she felt entitled to, not grateful for. She probably sold it or let it fall apart, too careless to appreciate the gravity of what I'd given her. Next, my husband started calling. Soft voice. Gentle words. Trying to wedge himself into the role of peacemaker. "They're your family, Zoe. They didn't know they were taking advantage. They just thought you were okay with it. They thought I was okay with it because you told them I was. I snapped. There was a long pause on the line. I didn't know what else to do, he whispered. You could have stood up for me. Once. Just once. He didn't reply. Instead, he sent a final message the next day. They're old, Zoe. They won't be here forever. Do you really want to leave things like this? And it hit me then, the desperation, not love. Not regret, desperation. They didn't care that I was gone. They cared that the money was. They weren't worried about emotional closure. They were worried about losing their safety net, and that made my next decision easy. I blocked every single one of them. No grand announcement. No dramatic send-off, just a clean cut. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: the more you give, the more some people will take. And when you finally stop, they don't ask how you're doing. They ask when you'll start again. Well, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. I didn't cry when I signed the divorce papers. There was no breakdown. No trembling hand. No last-minute hesitation. Just ink, paper, and a silence so powerful it felt sacred. People think walking away is loud. Dramatic. Explosive, but sometimes it's just a whisper. I'm done. I'd spent months reclaiming my space, my finances, my peace. I'd blocked them all. Shut out the chaos. But there was still one tie left, my marriage, a marriage that had become nothing more than a convenient arrangement for him and a never-ending financial trap for me. He hadn't apologized. Not truly. He hadn't changed. He just missed the benefits of having me around, so I gave him the one thing he hadn't expected: freedom. Not for him, he was always free to do what he wanted. But for me, I sent the papers with no warning. Just a note: this is not revenge. This is release. For both of us. 3 hours later, the phone started buzzing again. Unfamiliar numbers. Unknown names. Family I hadn't heard from in years suddenly crawling out of the woodwork. My cousin-in-law, who never once messaged me in all those years of struggle, wrote, "Are you really doing this? You'll tear the family apart." My sister-in-law, of course, tried to weaponize guilt. Wow. So you're just giving up on everything? I thought you were stronger than that. My mother-in-law left me a voicemail so long it got cut off halfway through. She started with, "I knew you were ungrateful from the beginning." And ended with, "You'll regret this when you're old and alone." The irony? I'd never felt less alone. After the storm of outrage came the silence. It was beautiful. There were no more knocks at the gate. No more pity fruit baskets or fake apologies wrapped in manipulation, just me. My home. My peace. I started spending time in the garden, something I never had time for before because I was too busy budgeting their bills. I joined a hiking group on weekends. Picked up painting again. Traveled solo to the coast and sat for hours watching waves crash, thinking, this is what freedom tastes like. It tasted like quiet mornings. Like laughter that wasn't forced. Like spending my money on things that mattered to me. Of course, they tried again. People like that don't give up so easily. They sent mutual friends to talk sense into me. He still loves you, they said. He's willing to go to therapy now. Don't throw away all those years. But I already had. I'd thrown away the years I spent explaining why I deserved respect. I'd thrown away the birthdays I paid for and never got thanked. The guilt trips disguised as concern. The manipulation masked as love. They thought I'd been soft because I gave so much. They didn't realize giving was a choice. And I could choose not to. I'd built a life with them. And they hollowed it out with their expectations and entitlement. Now I was building again, from the ground up. This time, for me, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need them to suffer or come crawling. I just needed them gone, and they were. When I closed the gate, I didn't look back, but the world has a way of letting you hear the echoes, even from a distance. I wasn't looking for updates on their lives, but small towns talk. Mutual friends whisper. And sometimes, karma comes with a front row seat. Turns out, when I walked away, so did their stability. the money I used to pour into their lives like a bottomless fountain? Gone. The bills I used to cover out of love? Unpaid. The support they thought was their birthright? Cut off. The sister-in-law, who once told me I owed it to her because she was the real daughter, couldn't keep up with her lavish lifestyle. She defaulted on rent for the luxury flat she insisted on moving into after selling the house I gave her. Last I heard, she was crashing at a friend's apartment, borrowing money from anyone who didn't know better. Her social media stayed glamorous though. Fake trips, old photos, inspirational quotes about staying strong, but the cracks were obvious to anyone paying attention. As for my mother-in-law, the queen of entitlement, she started calling people she hadn't spoken to in years, dropping hints about her difficult financial situation and how she wished her children were more generous. Spoiler alert, no one bit. People remembered how she treated them. How she boasted about the house I bought, how she looked down on others for not being as successful as her family. Without my money to back her image, she was just another bitter woman with a long list of grudges and no one left to impress. My father-in-law, who always stayed silent in the background, took up a part-time job at a cousin's hardware shop. He avoided public embarrassment by pretending it was just to stay active, but I knew. Everyone knew. They were scrambling, and I wasn't gloating. I didn't feel joy watching them fall apart, I felt peace. Because this wasn't my doing, this was consequence. A house built on exploitation will always collapse when the exploited walk away. After months of no contact, I received an email from my ex-husband, subject line, "Please read." I almost deleted it on instinct, but something told me to open it. The message was short. No greetings. No apologies, just this: they're blaming me now. Saying I ruined everything by not stopping you. They're talking about selling the family jewelry to stay afloat. I thought you should know. That was it, not even a question. Just a pathetic attempt to share his burden. To pull me back into their spiral of dysfunction. Misery does love company, after all, but I had no interest in joining. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen and thought, they learned nothing, they didn't reflect. They didn't grow. They didn't own up to the years they treated me like a commodity, not a person. All they did was look for the next person to blame: me. Him. Each other. They weren't sorry I left. They were sorry they had to clean up their own mess now, and I realized that was their true punishment, not poverty, not stress, not a smaller house or a humbler life. It was losing the only person who ever gave without demanding anything in return, the only one who saw them drowning and reached out a hand, and now that hand was gone, they couldn't reach me anymore. I had changed my number. Moved cities. Found peace, and the gate they used to feel entitled to walk through, it was still there, closed, locked, and this time, permanently.